Thank you for listening to Shy Sox Talk with your hosts, Chris and Matt, your weekly place for White Sox fan reactions. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 27 of Shy Sox Talk. My name is Chris. Usually I would have my trusty co-host Matt here, but he is celebrating tonight. Tonight we do have a special guest, Billman The Sports Guy. What's up, man? Welcome to the show.
All right, what's up? Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be on.
If you want to, just kind of introduce yourself to our listener base, kind of, what got you into the Sox? Are you a Southsider? And I know you have a podcast on Spotify.
Yes, so I am Billman The Sports Guy, and that's actually my podcast name, Billman The Sports Guy. Little podcast info, I give out weekly reviews, news of baseball, football, basketball, and hockey every Sunday. I just dropped my latest episode right around this afternoon-ish. And you could find me on Spotify and 5 other websites that I don't remember. But in terms of White Sox, at just a point after watching them, I just kind of grew into it. I guess just to sum it up.
Favorite White Sox all time?
Alexi Ramirez.
Alexi?
Yes. I remember the first White Sox game I ever went to, May 27th, 2012, against Cleveland. He actually waved at me. And he always tried to wave at me every time I was there. I actually once bought his t-shirt, funny enough, around 2014. When he was on deck, I held it up and I screamed, "Alexi, I got your shirt." And he's like,
Probably one of the more famous calls. Probably one of the more famous calls in Sox history.
Yes, with Hawk.
The perfect game. Yeah, the Hawk.
Alexei, yes.
So we are looking here. We got a couple of questions from some of our listeners. First one comes in here from Logan. What would you do with Lucas Giolito this offseason?
I would still give him a shot. Now, he's in 2017 when he first got called up, he showed some good stuff, some good potential. Then 2018, we all know he was arguably the worst pitcher in baseball. And then he had a huge comeback in 2019. And then he was solid in 2020 and 2021 throughout making the All-Star in 19 and throwing no-hitter. And this year, while he did do good today, his only mistake was the home run to Correa. He's been streaky. So I would still ride with him in 23. Give him a shot. See if he actually finds his groove. And within 23, then you might want to move him. Or in the offseason of 23.
I think the fans have already seen, your ceiling with the guy. He's, a really good 2. And then your floor, which is a 4 or 5. And that's kind of what you want in a major league pitcher who's going to be your back-end rotation guy, I think, moving forward. Last I read, Crochet's on pace to be a starter next year. So, hypothetically, you got, Cease, Kopech, and Crochet as your top 3. And then you could fill out the back end with, Lynn and Giolito, depending if Cueto comes back. But, he's a solid 4 or 5. He kind of is throwing a 4 or 5 this year. Streaky. There are outings where he gets lit up, like the Astros game. And then there are outings today where he kind of, his only mistake is against Correa and, or he's going to shove against, who they play, Kansas City, I think, was his last start. So he's a 4 or 5. I would take that in a 4 or 5, especially in the White Sox. They don't have any big arms coming up outside of Crochet. That's dependent on if, his rehab goes the way it's supposed to. He's throwing right now on the south side. He's finally back from Arizona. He's doing some long toss and towel toss the last I saw on Twitter. So, I keep Lucas. I don't think you're going to find another 4 or 5, in the system unless you move up Davis Martin and put Lucas on the trade block.
The thing with Crochet is it's just like Kopech. I just wouldn't rush him until the time is right. Now, obviously, compared to Kopech, he did miss 20, but with 21, I was just more happy that at least last year they didn't seem to rush him. They just kept him in the pen, and this year they're giving him a shot, I believe, as the 4th starting pitcher, if I'm not mistaken. I would do the same thing with Crochet. Put him in the pen, year or two, then give him the starting rotation, but I wouldn't put him at 1, 2, or 3. If you keep him at 4 or 5 for a year or two, that's fine with me. Let him grow to his potential.
The White Sox could also use him as a swingman, so they could sign Johnny Cueto back and have Crochet as their 6th swingman doubleheader, doing two innings out of the pen. Kind of what Kopech did last year. I think that's what he was supposed to do this year until his elbow went. And honestly, his elbow went at, like, if it was going to go this year, I would have much rather had gone in March than in September. Because if it went now, he's gone essentially for a whole nother season. Like, you don't see him for technically 2 years instead of just, like, 1. But yeah, I mean, I keep Lucas. I think he's kind of a vet. He likes Ethan Katz. They seem to have a pretty good chemistry. I love Ethan Katz, pitching coach, and I think if he's around, Lucas is going to kind of be a part of that pairing.
Regardless, whoever's the next Sox manager next year, I really hope Ethan Katz is back because he's done tremendous. He's turned around Carlos Rodon before leaving for San Francisco. He's turned around Dylan Cease magnificently. I can't say it right, but I just love what he's done. Like, out of everybody that was part of Tony's staff, I'd keep Ethan in a heartbeat.
He really is the only one I'd keep. I just, like, Joe McEwing, what are you doing? The infield's not getting any better. Darryl Boston, the outfield isn't getting any better. Like, honestly, the only one you keep is Ethan Katz. And that kind of actually segues us into our second question from Mark. Ethan Katz seems to be doing a good job developing the major league pitching. Do you think it's trickling down to the minor leagues? Teams like Cleveland does nothing but develop starting pitching. Do you think Ethan Katz's philosophy could ultimately bring that to the South Side?
I kind of lost you on the other half. What was the other half of the question?
Oh, basically, question is, can Ethan Katz put a system in to develop pitching on the South Side like they do in Cleveland?
I can say yes. As long as they've turned around, like Johnny Cueto's actually having a good year, which I don't think any of us saw it. As I did say, he turned around Rodon and Cease. And there's some other pitchers that I do think he can turn around. Like, I'm hoping he can help turn around Davis Martin. So I'll say yes.
I think so too. I don't really remember a time. The White Sox had a pitching coach for like 20 years, like a super long time before Ethan Katz came in. I don't remember a time where the White Sox were effectively really kind of developing anybody, but pitching in general, right? Like, how many times did somebody come up during the rebuild that was just garbage? Ethan Katz is who fixed Lucas Giolito. It wasn't the previous pitching coach. The previous pitching coach had Dylan Cease as a guy who could give people 0-2 but couldn't get the third strike. Like, Katz is the man. You got Davis Martin, you got Jorge Vera. Now we have Schultz in the mix, the first-round draft pick this year. Matthew Thompson's doing okay in the minors. Jared Kelly kind of fell off the table. Pretty disappointed about him. But, overall, I think it's there. I think his mentality's there, and I think his, development side is there.
I would agree.
Davis Martin stats, coming up basically as opener / bullpen day, 44 innings, 4.9 ERA, 30 strikeouts, a whip of 1.25. I mean, this guy came out of nowhere, and he's been nothing but solid. He eats innings, and, when you need him to be a spot starter and not throw Joe Kelly for whatever reason the first inning, throw him. Just start him.
I still can't believe that on one of my earlier podcast episodes, I predicted Joe Kelly and the White Sox. I did not think he would do that bad. Oh man.
And then leading into our last question before we kind of get in the meat of everything, what do you think the White Sox need to do in the last month to win the division?
Please be consistent, and I'm hoping they could still keep the fight, that they don't lose it. Because after Tony left, with Miguel Cairo, I've noticed that the team finally had fight. Like on game 1, when the bench is cleared, like Lance Lynn and everybody else got out of the bench like quick. And as Steve Stone mentioned, I don't think Rocco Baldelli wants a piece of Miguel Cairo, because it both looked like they were just ready to throw knuckles at each other.
Rocco Baldelli is a coward.
He's a damn sissy.
The White Sox just really need to take care of business against the division. The people who've been beating the White Sox all year is the AL Central. Like, they have a pretty strong record against the AL East. AL West is okay. The NL teams are, fine enough, but you have to take care of business. You have 4 against Cleveland. You have 6 more against Minnesota, and I think you got 3 against Detroit. What was that? 12 games. You got to go like 9-3, 10-2.
And also, I do hope that, I feel like there's just some like teams below that you just cannot take for granted. Like, we got Seattle, who I believe they're still fighting for a playoff spot last time I checked. They got Oakland. Yeah, they got Oakland, who between them and the Reds, like last year, both of them were like a piece or 2 away, but then their owners just blew it up. Like, they cannot take Oakland for granted. They can't take Colorado for granted. Any other teams? I think that's it. And as you pointed out,
you got the Padres at the end.
Oh, that's right.
But you got 6 against Detroit, so you have 15 more against your division, and you have to beat the bad teams. Like, you have 5 against Oakland and Colorado combined. You got to take 4. Like, you got to beat bad teams. You can't go 500 against bad teams.
No, and you can't even, and you can't go like 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. Like, that's just not acceptable. And
you also got to take 3 against Cleveland. That's reality. If Cleveland takes 3 against you, you're in a huge hole. Thankfully, Cleveland and Minnesota let the White Sox stick around all year to where these games matter. Like, Cleveland could have buried the White Sox, and they didn't. The White Sox are 2 back, folks. You got to take care of business. You got to take care of business against your division here on out, I think.
I'm guessing Cleveland won today because I'm checking the standings, and they're 2.5. But we're
Cleveland
also 2 games back of the
delay.
Twins.
So Cleveland was in a rain delay. Yeah, I don't know if they ever got the game back. They are back up and running. It is the bottom of the 7th, and Cleveland is down 3-1. They were going to kind of put this game in today because Seattle's not going to be out on the East Coast again, I don't think. So I think they were willing to wait, which this might help Chicago because Chicago's going to beat the Mariners back home. So let's finally take advantage of Game 1 in series. The White Sox are like 14-25 in Game 1 of series this season.
I don't understand how every first game of the series we somehow lose or stink, but then the last games it's like, oh, we figured it out.
It's managing, and like Miguel Cairo is going to do it. Like, you saw it when Miguel Cairo stepped up. They should have taken that first game against Kansas City, but they hit 4 out of the park. But who was on the bump? Not Kopech.
It was Giolito.
Johnny Cueto. Cueto had his one bad game. It is what it is. First game against the Twins, they look way better. Like, that comes down to coaching and having your team ready to play, and having scouting reports, and having the right mentality to get teams to be up for it. And Tony just doesn't have that. I like Tony, and I know we're about to get in the offseason stuff, and I hope he's okay. He's too old. He's a nice old man. Don't coach my favorite baseball team. Like, you're just an old guy. Be a senior advisor. You can't do 162.
The thing I've learned from him this year is, look, this isn't the 1980s. We're in 2022. He last managed Major League Baseball in 2011. He went 10 years Things have changed. And, there were two big things that absolutely scared me when Tony first got hired. One, how's he going to manage? Because he hasn't managed since 2011. And the second part, how badly was he going to screw up the culture? Because I thought we were actually getting a good culture under Rick Renteria. Now, granted, Renteria first managed throughout the rebuild, and then 1920 had some question marks, but just in how badly was Tony going to screw it up in some of the guys with one out. Obviously, he screwed up Yermin Mercedes. Screwed his career, and now he's in the Giants AAA facility. Dude.
Floating on the edge.
I was so mad when he blasted Mercedes for the 3-0. I'm all in. Hey, it's a home run. Who cares? And when he went over, you apologize to the opposing manager. I haven't seen any of them do that. But nobody does that.
Tony wrote the book, and I saw a really good comparison of this. It would be like Bill Belichick left football right now and then tried to coach 15 years from now. The game's different. It evolves a ton in that time, and he's just he should have just been he should have been a senior advisor or something, and just let Cairo or AJ Hinch or literally anybody else manage the team.
Anybody younger than 77. I saw somebody on Twitter say, incoming Lou Piniella to the White Sox. And the dude's 80. I'm like, no.
I think the guy's dead now. But, I mean, a part of why Ricky Renteria was fired is because he didn't listen to his analytics team. And the White Sox have the smallest analytics team in Major League Baseball. And Tony doesn't listen to the analytics team. We just replaced Ricky Renteria with an older Ricky Renteria. And I kind of liked Ricky. Don't really like Tony because I also think Tony has an awful attitude towards the media, towards people asking questions. He doesn't own up to anything. He walks guys in weird situations when it's 1-2. It's just a lot of stuff doesn't make any sense. And, and I think this is going to be, if the White Sox keep winning, Tony won't be back. If they fall apart, Tony will get the last weekend as a send-off.
I hope. Look, no disrespect to Tony. During his career, obviously Hall of Famer, second all time in wins, which is actually impressive. And in the health wise, I do hope he's okay. Never want to wish anybody to get ill, but the White Sox just need a manager who's younger than 70 and who can actually bring them fire. Because I really felt like Tony did not do that most of the year. Now, granted, he surprised all of us with 93 wins. This season's a different story.
I don't know if he was the key last year. You had guys like Billy Hamilton, lightning in the bottle. You had Gordon, lightning in the bottle. Rodon, lightning in a bottle. I think Tony, things just fell the right way for him. Because if Billy Hamilton and Brian Goodwin and Garcia, and who else was on that team last year that they kind of let go? Danny Mendick had a few moments. If those guys don't have the moments they had, the White Sox are an 85-team win last year. They probably don't win the Central, or people aren't as hopeful this season. Tony caught a lot of lightning in the bottle last year, and he's not getting it this year. And Lucas Giolito was a beast last year. Dylan Cease figured out the second half of the year last year. They kind of worked around Dallas Keuchel. I don't think Tony got the same luck, honestly, from guys this year that he did last year. And batting Gavin Sheets when he was batting 200 at leadoff was insane, and I will never understand that decision.
No, and I could. Who was pitching? There was one game against Texas. I think it was either Davis Martin or Matt Foster. One of them had the body language of why is seriously, what's he doing? Why is he still there?
Yeah. So kind of leading us into our last kind of topic for the night. Off-season is coming up. A few things for this one. hitting this year has been kind of a mess. I think it's been a mix of Tony's old school mentality and Frank Mendocino, who's in his last year of his contract. What do you do? What should the White Sox kind of do with that? Which I'm assuming is going to be vacancy. I don't assume they're bringing back Frank Mendocino.
Number one, send Frank somewhere else. Get him out. Bye-bye, Frank. I know I've talked about this with guys, but they have to re-sign Jose Abreu. To me, he's one of those players that I just cannot see him in a other Major League Baseball team uniform other than the White Sox. I think he's got at least 2 years of solid baseball left in the tank for him. And please get more lefty pitchers and batters. Like, don't get me wrong, I like a lot of our players. There's roughly been any Sox player that I've said I've disliked. There's maybe been a few or so over the years, but just need lefties. Because if you're going to win championships, I just have never seen a team that has gone fully overpower righty. Like, I know we got Moncada, Grandal, and Leary, who are both switch hitters, but need more like lefties, because we had Reese McGuire for a while. We've had Gavin Sheets. Adam Hazley, he's lefty. His name's not coming to my head. Garrett Payton? I think that's his name, the Chicago native. He's lefty. Yeah.
Might be lefty.
I guess in pitching-wise, all we've had was Jake Diekman.
Well, I guess pitching-wise, I don't think they expected Aaron Bummer and both Garrett Crochet to kind of blow their arms out early. So I'll kind of give them – Dallas Keuchel completely fell apart. But, I mean, first things first, to get rid of Frank Mendocino, I think you bring up Chris Johnson from Charlotte. Charlotte's slugging .455 right now. Seems like he's teaching guys lift. Anytime somebody came back up from Charlotte, they seem like they're doing great. Gavin Sheets, one example. I think you bring him up. Miguel Cairo is probably the manager next year if Tony doesn't come back. And I don't know if you can bring back Jose Abreu. I don't think you can have Jose, Gavin Sheets, Eloy Jimenez, and Andrew Vaughn all on the team. Part of me thinks you let Jose Abreu walk, and you put Andrew Vaughn at first. You leave Eloy in left if he bats better, or DH. If he can mentally bat as a DH, put him at DH. And then you take Gavin Sheets, you put him on the bench. Here's your lefty bench guy. Go get 2 real corner outfielders. You're going to have, $25 to $35 million, depending on arbitration with Dylan Cease. If you bring back Jose Abreu, you could go get 2 real left-handed outfielders or a switch hitter. I think it's possible that you call up Pittsburgh and see what Brian Reynolds' price tag is, and you stick him in right or left field.
Yes. Just the one thing, I just kind of have a feeling that they're just going to shy away if they're going to ask for one of the top prospects, like Colson Montgomery, who we still got in the minors. Yoki Cespedes, who I believe is switch-handed. I could be wrong. I know Colas is full on. Oh, he is? Okay. I thought he was a switch hitter for some reason. I know Colas and Montgomery are both lefties, and both of them will be up within 2 years, a year or two.
Colas is tracking for 2023. I think it's possible he gets a spring training invite and then kind of see how it goes. If he crushes it in spring training, he'll probably be your right fielder for 2023. I'm okay with moving Uelke for Brian Reynolds. I don't know if they'd take that. But I also think it's possible you put Tim Anderson in the corners and you try to get Dansby Swanson to be your shortstop. Tim's defense has been looking rough this year. Tim was drafted as a center fielder / shortstop. He can play the corners. He has a pretty strong arm. And then you just go get a left-handed person for the other corner. And you move Eloy to DH. But you can't have Vaughn, Sheets, Eloy, and Jose on the team again. There's just too many roster spots for guys to do the same thing.
I don't blame Vaughn and Sheets for trying, but they're just not real outfielders at the end of the day.
It's not their
They're
fault.
just both meant to be first basemen.
It's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. That's Rakan for building a bad depth team. And I like Gavin Sheets as a bench bat or a DH. Like, pinch hit Gavin Sheets, he's done great at that. And moving Andrew Vaughn to first base, your outfield defense gets exponentially better because Andrew Vaughn just isn't athletic enough to patrol the corners. And he tried his best. And I love Vaughn. Centerpiece for years to come.
Oh, me
Not
too.
a
And
right fielder.
I do believe he's the future starting first baseman to come. One outfielder, are they actually going to attend to get Jock Peterson? Because the last 3-4 years, they were always in the Jock Peterson rumors, and it never happened. The last 3-4, he signed with LA. Obviously, last year he split time with the Cubs and the Atlanta Braves. This year he's with San Francisco.
They offered Jock money. He turned them down. They offered Jock the most amount of money, and he said no. He went to the north side. So I don't know if it's like a Tony La Russa thing. I don't know if he just like doesn't want to be a White Sox, but they tried on him. He said no. Same with the Wheeler, Zach Wheeler. They tried to get Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler said no. Maybe things
I
have
think
changed.
his
Like
wife
Tony's
had to
gone.
play part of it.
Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, I thought I was reading something saying like Zach Wheeler's wife, she wanted to be closer to home because I believe she's
She was
she's
a
from
Northeastern
Rohawk,
person.
Rhode Island.
Okay, well, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah,
It's like Anthony Rizzo, the New York Yankees. But Jose Abreu has a negative weighted runs created this year when a player's on third base. That's extremely concerning, especially for like your power bat first baseman. Somebody's going to want like $20 million probably. I love Jose Abreu. Love him. I also think he might see himself out and go to like Houston, who will need a new first baseman because Yuri Gurriel sucks again. Because he sucks. He's not good anymore.
oh no. I love Jose. Arguably the face of the White Sox. And even if you look at his offensive numbers, if you minus the Mickey Mouse season, quote unquote, 2020, this may be the first time in an 162 game season that he's not hit 20 plus home runs. Currently, he's at 14. He's second behind Andrew Vaughn.
It'll be the first time in I think 6 or 7 seasons where he doesn't get 100 RBIs, 30 home runs. I think Father Time might have caught him up.
Actually, I think that would be the first time since 2018. I believe he finished somewhere in the 80s in RBIs. Let me take a quick
2018
look.
Jose Abreu.
Yes.
Get his numbers up right now.
I'm doing that right now.
But I just don't see a year where I don't know if I see a world where 2018 78 20.
Yeah.
So
But he did get hurt near the end, so had he not
he's
been hurt,
basically
he probably
this is his worst season as a Chicago White Sox. Like looking at it right now, looking at his numbers, this will be his worst season. He is 35, going to be going on 36. I think it's time for Andrew Vaughn. I mean, if you bring back Jose, it's got to be like $2 or $3 million, and you got to tell him to DH every few days.
Your salary point was kind of pointing at where I was predicting. Like, if I were to predict an Abreu contract White Sox extension, it's probably, 1 to 2 years worth. I don't know, 3-5 mil. Like I just don't see him. Yeah, I just don't see him getting like 20, 50 plus at this point. Had he be younger than that, that's a possibility. But right now, I hate to admit it, no. I just don't see it.
I think you qualify it, and honestly, I think he might, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, he might be a Houston Astro for $15 million a year. I guess it's a reality. Or a team that might need a veteran first baseman. I don't know how many are out there in the AL that's contending, like maybe Seattle, but they have...
they have Ty France.
They have Ty France.
And Carlos Santana. I completely forgot about that.
They got Carlos Santana. The Mets, they're a contender in the NL. They have Pete Alonso. Braves have Matt Olson. Trying to think of like fringe teams off the top of my head. Maybe Tampa Bay. Maybe he like signs 2 years because it's close to Cuba in Tampa Bay and plays first base because they don't really have a first baseman. But I think White Sox fans, reality, you're probably not seeing Jose Abreu next year. I love the guy. I wouldn't bring him back.
Oh, yeah, and I guess my one Abreu question, in terms of best current athletes in Chicago, where would you rank him? If you look at his career numbers and his possible awards.
Like career, like active, like I'm not saying like, like Chris Bryant was in Chicago for a few years, like active Chicago people.
Well, I guess not active. I guess you could.
I mean, like active, probably his top 3 active. Like you got like, I mean, you can make the argument for like Luis Robert, but he hasn't shown his MVP stuff yet. You can make the argument for like DeMar DeRozan. You have like Justin Fields and stuff, but Jose's been around long enough where I'd put him like top 3 all time. I think Jose's probably like the 4th or 5th best first baseman ever for the White Sox, so he's not even in the conversation of all time.
Oh, if I could
Frank Thomas is like a first baseman. I got Paul Konerko over him at 3, but I think Andrew Vaughn's going to be better than him overall for a career. I got him at 4, judging on Andrew Vaughn's trajectory. I know that might be blasphemous, and I love Jose, but it's the truth.
In terms of current athletes, I would definitely put Abreu top 3, top 5, because 1 and 2, to me, is Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks. Even if he gets traded for number 1, it's like not even close. And maybe the second closest, I would argue, Zach LaVine of the Bulls.
Didn't even think about Patrick Kane. Didn't even think about the Chicago Blackhawks at all. That's how bad they've been. Didn't even think about them.
At least I've been keeping my eye on them.
But yeah, I mean, I love Jose. I just don't know if he's back next year. And then like Josh Harrison, I'd pick up his option. Keep him at second base. You need the depth, even if Danny Mendick's your everyday guy. I love Josh Harrison. He also revs up the team.
I'd be perfectly fine with them picking up Josh for next season. Now, yeah, he's hitting like under 250, but he actually picked it up in the month of June. And even if he's a bench guy, that's fine with me.
Great bench guy. Better than Larry. Way better than Garcia. I can't stand Larry Garcia. Tony loves the guy. Tony loves Garcia. Garcia was cool, like longest tender White Sox and everything. He is not good. He's not good. We paid him to be our everyday second baseman. He's not good. At one point, he was the worst player in baseball.
Oh, wow. No, like, first month of April, it wasn't he hitting like what? He wasn't even hitting like above 100 at some point.
Yeah, he wasn't above 100 until it wasn't above 100 until like June, I think. Like it took him a really long time to get above 100. So I mean that kind of brings us to everything. White Sox road ahead here. We always kind of do a prediction for the next 7 days. The White Sox have 3 against the Seattle Mariners, 3 against the Detroit Tigers, I believe, and then
it's Oakland.
Or
Oakland
3 against Seattle, 4 against Oakland. What do you got them going next 7 days?
I have the White Sox taking 2 out of 3 against Seattle. I partially believe there's going to be one game Seattle's just going to run away with. Now, Oakland, I hope we either take 3 out of 4 or sweep them. Because if we split, or if Oakland wins the series, then we might be in a lot of trouble.
I got the Sox going 5-2. I believe again. I'm an idiot. I believe again that they're alive again. They put the hope into my heart again. They're going 5-2. Miguel Cairo is the man.
It's like he walked up and he's like, "Listen, you goofballs, get on my. I'm gonna carry you all to the playoffs. Hop on."
He just brought life. He just brought life to the team. Like, you can just tell they're having fun again, which matters, because Tony La Russa's too old school, and, again, nice old man, don't manage my favorite baseball team.
Like, it's not bad to have old school mentality at times, like, even from a player perspective, but from, like, 1980s, 70s, like, it's just not going to work. I don't know what to tell you, but with Miguel Cairo, I've actually finally had reasons to smile again. Because, like, there were times with Tony, I was like, look, I like you, but goodbye.
Yeah.
Please leave.
Do you have any parting words for our viewers? Any tips for the stadium? Anything you should watch out for? Or just, like, life tips in general?
To anybody who wants to get into the podcast world or broadcasting world, which is what I'm trying to shoot for later in life, be you. If there's something you want to create a podcast about, go for it. The door's open. There's many options, many sites you could put on, and be yourself.
Hell yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's all I could think of at the moment.
My words of wisdom is, if you're at a game and they keep hitting singles and you see Frank Mendocino, like, boom a lot, like, throw some popcorn at him, don't do that, kids. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Don't lose faith, though, because 2022 isn't over. Thanks for viewing in. I got Billman's everything for him is linked in our post and the YouTube description. Go check him out. It's a great show, especially if you like Chicago sports. And go White Sox.
Yes, go White Sox.